Welcome to the Robotics Through Science Fiction podcast. Today we have Martha Wells, Hugo and Nebula award-winning writer for her Rolling on the Floor Laughing Funny series, The Murderbot Diaries. Tell us a little about Murderbot for those who haven't had a chance to read the series yet, Martha.
Well, it's far future SF, and it's about a part human, part machine security unit who is supposed to be completely under human control, but it's hacked its own governor module in order to get free will. And instead of killing the humans in revenge, it discovers it can download all the entertainment media off what's basically their version of the internet. And the novella series is how it decides what it's going to do with its new freedom and what happens next.
It's such a great series. Murderbot's just my hero. I think if we were going to build a robot, that would be ours. But I was really surprised because your earlier novels were fantasy. The Books of the Oscura was nominated for the 2018 Hugo for Best Series. You're really popular at the Hugos, I bet. So why was the shift from fantasy to robots? Or do you think of robots as fantasy given all the hype we're constantly hearing about robots?
Well, so set in the very far future, kind of galactic civilization, and some of the technology is a type of sort of super science technology from things like Star Trek and Star Wars. I think way is fantasy, and that's kind of how I approach it. So it wasn't that different from me. And I don't think of robots as fantasy because, I do think they've taken on kind of a mythic quality in fiction and media.
Yeah, well, as a roboticist, I don't like to think of them as fantasy, but there is an awful lot of hype. And one of the things that I loved about Murderbot is that most writers introduce robot autonomy as some sort of accident of emergence. And Murderbot gains its autonomy through a sloppy software engineering update. Where did all the bad software engineering ideas come from?
Well, it came from experience with programming and user support and working with database management because I've involved with a lot of incidents where someone did one thing wrong and it was just, there was a bunch of data that then had to be re-entered or corrected, and it was just a huge disaster. And the thing with Murderbot is that it was already sentient, since all the constructs are partially human. So the sloppy software update just gave it some of the tools it needed to be able to access its intent from acting as it wanted to.
Yeah, as soon as I read All Systems Red, I get about 3 chapters in, and I was like, whoa, guys, all my software engineering friends, I was sending this to all my friends in cybersecurity, and it's like, yes, this is what we've been telling you people about. This is what we have to deal with in the field as roboticists. And there's nothing like getting an update in the middle of a disaster or run while you're doing something. So very cool. And so you weren't always a writer. You did something else for a while?
Yeah, I worked in IT on the Texas A&M US and at the ocean drilling program for about 9 years, in some programming and mostly user support. And then I worked for a private company doing some web software support for several years.
Wow, so you would really know about the software engineering, so that makes that more fun. Well, the Murderbot Diaries are novellas. They're very short, or fairly short. Why did you go with the novella format? Was that easier to write than novel stories?
It was originally going to be a short story, and it had a sad ending. But as I was writing, I realized I needed it to be longer. And novella length, which is about 30,000 words, which is about a third the size of a normal-sized novel, really fit well with the story. And I knew Tor.com had a great novella line, and I thought it would be a good fit for that. And actually, novella is easier for me to write than a short story because I kind of think it's a different sort of skill, kind of compressing your whole story down into that length. And I'm just better writing it at longer lengths, so it was better for me.
Well, cool. So, speaking of novels, uh, Exit Strategy is going to be the final installment of the diaries, right? So the novella, but are we going to get a Murderbot book or maybe a Murderbot Amazon TV series, or at least a TV series of Moon, which I want to watch now?
A TV series would be really cool, but I do know right now you're going to get a novel. I'm not sure when it's going to come out yet. It's probably going to not be until 2020 because I'm still working on it. It's basically a sequel to the novella series, and it starts a new storyline for Murderbot.
Oh, is Art back in it? I like Art.
Yes, Art is going to be back in it.
Yay! And speaking of Art, what about humor? Is that easier or harder to write?
It can be very hard. For me, it depends a lot on the personality of the character and how I develop their sense of humor and kind of the world building. The best humor comes out of the characters and their specific situation they're in. And so in a way, it is all part of kind of the plot and the world building for me.
Well, it seems very natural. I mean, that's one of the things I love about Murderbot, that just kind of like, running commentary of snark. It's just like, yes, I wish you were narrating my life, what I'm going through at any given time. Well, unfortunately, we're running out of time. So one last question. What's your favorite robot? And it has to exclude Murderbot in the Murderbot universe.
Well, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I was from the time I was a kid. And I really love the way the robots were kind of really integral to that universe. But recently, I think the design of the robot on the reboot of Lost in Space that's on Netflix, that was an incredible design. It was just fascinating to watch. And I really liked what they did with it. So that's going to be one of my favorites from now on.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that series, what they do is season 2 with it, since we get a second robot out of nowhere. I want to see how they explain that one away. Hopefully there won't be a second Dr. Smith. So.
Yeah.
But anyway, Martha, thank you so much for being with us. And if you're listening, Joe Williams, our site runner, has asked me to remind you all to subscribe to Robotics Through Science Fiction YouTube channel and our newsletter so you can get updates and alerts and never miss a thing. Thanks again, Martha.